Hey everybody, I'm going to play some more Intellivision while talking about the Intellivision Amico. This is the original Intellivision I'm playing, Donkey Kong, which of course is a Nintendo game, and honestly, it's considered to be a pretty bad port of the game, which is kind of interesting. It kind of goes along with my topic today, because today I want to talk about what Intellivision and the Amico could learn from Nintendo and the Wii. Basically, how to market, how to plan, that sort of thing, how to target, because it's clear that Tommy Tallarico and company want the Intellivision Amico to be the next Wii. You know, the Wii was not the most powerful system when it came out, but it really became successful because it attracted multiple generations of gamers. It was a good party system, very much in line with what they want to do with the Amico. And they've referenced it many times. I believe Nick Richards of Intellivision has said they actually have a Wii at the office for inspiration. But I do think that Intellivision is making some mistakes. You can't just have a system with motion controls and it be underpowered and it's going to have the success of the Wii. There are some things, and I tried to climb that ladder and it didn't work. But there are some things that you have to do beyond that. So let's talk about some lessons that Intellivision and the Amico could learn from the Nintendo and the Nintendo Wii. So lesson 1 is be smart with your announcements. When Nintendo makes an announcement, they've usually already put a lot of work behind whatever they're announcing, whether it be a game or a system. And they're very deliberate with their announcements. They make a big deal about it. They're very organized about it. And when they make an announcement, things usually move pretty quickly because they've already done a bunch of work. For instance, I think they announced the Nintendo Wii, I think it was the Revolution at the time, at E3 of 2005. Then at E3 2006, they actually showed it off to the press. You know, they had everything lined up. And they announced the launch date and the price in September of 2006. And it came out just a couple months later in November. So things moved really rapidly. They didn't have like, oh, we're going to do this 2 years from now and not have a prototype ready. They had everything planned and organized. And sometimes with Mr. Tallarico, I get the idea that he daydreams out loud, that he talks about plans he wants to do just kind of off the cuff. And that maybe there hasn't been a lot of work put into some of the discussions he's had. For instance, as you know in my previous video, the 40 missing Intellivision games, when they first announced the Amico, they had, 50 games that they announced, yet most of them disappeared. Why? Probably because they had a lot of licenses, but they hadn't started the work. And creating 50 games for any system, if they're going to have any decent quality, is going to take a while. So that tells me that they hadn't fully had everything, all their ducks lined up in a row, if you will. And the price announcement, when it came out originally $150 to $180, and then it went up by about $70 to $100, what have you. When it went up 40%, that kind of, it seemed like, well, why did you announce it at one price and now you're raising it so much? It wasn't a little raise. And then, of course, they have 3 launch dates. And I've never known Nintendo to have multiple launch dates, even with the pandemic, which just makes me think that they're so eager to announce things that they announce things when there's not a solid plan in order. So be smart with your announcements. Have stuff already set to go. Know that you're on a timetable. Have things already, in the works, well ahead of schedule before you announce it so that you don't have delays. All right, the second lesson that they can learn from Nintendo and the Wii is to have something for everybody. And this is something that that some people might forget that the Wii did, but they actually, I believe in one of their trailers, they actually said this, or in one of their presentations, they said that they had something for everybody. Of course, people, when they think of the Wii, they think of grandma in the retirement home playing Wii bowling. But the truth is, they tried to target everybody. If you look at some of their E3 trailers, they show, the family. They show families playing together. They show teens playing together. They show adults playing together. They also show people playing by themselves, like core gamers, if you will, playing games by themselves. And I feel like right now, the Amico is so focused on the family aspect that they're losing core gamers. They're losing single players. Even though they said every game will have a single player option, I feel like they're not really giving games for those single players. Everything is simple and fun, but in some point, in some ways, it's almost too simple. I don't see games that I really, as a core gamer, as a retro gamer, as someone who wants to sit down and sink my teeth into something, I don't see a lot of options. I believe Nick Richards of Intellivision said that he wants, their target audience, if they were to boil it down, their target audience is a family with a kid around the age of 7. And I understand wanting to be able to reach families, and I just slipped right there. I understand wanting to reach families, wanting to allow kids to play along with parents, be multi-generational. I have no problem with that with some of the games. Do that with some of the games, but not every single game. They make it sound like they want every game to basically cater to the weaker gamers. So like if you have a game and one player is not as strong as the others, their karma engine, which is just, basically programming, it's not really an engine, but what they want is they want the games to level the playing field every single time. And at that point, it kind of punishes the people who have skill. It basically becomes a video game version of Candyland. I can play Candyland with my kids of any age because it's basically luck of the draw, right? There's no skill in Candyland. And I can have a little bit of fun playing with my kids, but it's not a game I could play for a long time with my kids because honestly, I would get bored. And honestly, the kids get bored too. There really isn't much to Candyland, but I'm afraid they're trying to do this with so many games where every video game becomes Candyland, where it's not based on skill, it's focused on multiplayer, but it's almost based on luck. It's based on, anyone can win anytime, but after a while that doesn't become fun. With some games that's okay, but not every game. Give core gamers, give them something, give single players a reason to buy the system. I think one of the reasons why the Wii was successful is because there were players who were fans of Nintendo who wanted to play the next Metroid or the next Donkey Kong, They wanted to play the next Nintendo franchise, the next Zelda. They bought it, they brought it home, but when Grandma and Grandpa came over, they busted out Wii Sports. And I think that's why it caught on with multi-generations, because a core gamer bought the system and their family tried it out and they were able to play it. So like with me and my Wii, there's games that I like to play by myself, but there's games I've also played with the family. So Intellivision definitely needs to reach out to the single player, to the core gamer, as well as families as well. The third lesson that they should learn from Nintendo is have multiple big name games announced and in the works, ready to go within a year of the system coming out. Some ready to go at launch and some beyond. When Nintendo showed their first trailer for the Wii, they had images from what would become known as Super Mario Galaxy, Metroid Prime 3, and Zelda, the Twilight Princess, which they brought over from the GameCube. You had 3 big franchises ready to go with the Wii to get gamers excited. And nowadays, you kind of need it, especially if you have a new system, you need those big franchises. Now, they kind of, a little bit, scratch the itch with Earthworm Jim 4. Let me just say, I'm a little worried about Earthworm Jim 4. I'm worried that they're going to turn it into a party game, that they're going to turn it into basically Mario Party, Earthworm Jim Party, and not a true sequel. And I think if they do that, it's going to be a really bad mistake. I'm not against party games, but like I said, you need to have something for those core gamers, for those fans of the franchise. Mario Party's okay, but it's not the foundation of the Mario series. So you need to have multiple big name games. Now, obviously, Intellivision themselves, they don't really have that big name value in their game library. The Intellivision library doesn't have games that the average gamer is going to say, wow, that's really cool. That's why Earthworm Jim 4 is such a big deal. Really hardcore retro gamers, they care about the Cloudy Mountains. They care about the Night Stalkers, but your average gamer doesn't. So what do? Here's what I think they should have done. If I could have got into my DeLorean and traveled back at the initial planning stages and been a consultant, I would say, hey, this is what you guys need to do. You want to release 20 games at launch. I recommend you don't release 20 games, you release 10 games. 3 of those games, that you have in the works should be big name titles. So you use the money, manpower, and resources on those games that you would have made, all those 20 games, The 10 games that you're, going to not make, instead use the resources for those games to go out and get some licenses that companies would that would allow you to play with them a little bit. Namco, we've seen lots of Pac-Man games on different plug and plays and handhelds and different systems. Maybe Namco, if you paid them enough, would allow you to make a unique version of Pac-Man for the Amico. Maybe it's, a game already seen with an Amico twist, or a completely new game. Maybe Capcom would allow you to make a new Mega Man game, a new entry in the franchise, or let you re-release a game that's previously been released, but again, you add an extra level or an extra boss or something unique to it. Or maybe you contact Konami and see if you could do a new Castlevania game, or re-release a Castlevania game with extra levels, something like that, and those could all fit in the E10 and up rating that they want. There have been Castlevania games like Super Castlevania 4. That was an E10 and up game. So that could fit in your kind of family-friendly criteria. And it could also attract people. If I tell people, just in general on my channel, hey, the Amico is going to have a new Night Stalker, it's going to have a new Cloudy Mountain, a few people are going to be really interested, but not everybody. But if I said there's a new Mega Man, there's a new Pac-Man, there's a new Castlevania, they're going to be interested. So you need to have some more big name titles. At least that's what Nintendo would do. They had Zelda, Metroid, and Mario all set to go. The fourth lesson that they could learn from Nintendo is to let the games speak for themselves. One of the things that's driving me a little crazy is every gameplay trailer that they have done so far, for the most part, it's very quick clips. It seems like it's a lot of the same clips over and over again. And at E3 2021, Tommy Tallarico, during a 10-minute presentation, I think like 3 minutes of it was gameplay, which honestly, I think it should have been more than 3 minutes. But 3 minutes of it was gameplay, maybe 4, and he talked over the whole thing. Nintendo, when they do a Nintendo Direct or they do a trailer, they typically spend a little bit more time on the games, and they allow the games to speak for themselves. They might say something a little before or after, but then they just show you the game and let the player get immersed in the world that's coming and get excited about the images they're seeing. That's so cheap. That guy just popped up on me. And I think Intellivision would be smart to do that. Show longer clips, more diverse clips. Why did I do that again? Because I'm not thinking. And really allow the games to speak for themselves. And then the final thing that they could learn from Nintendo and the Wii is the role of the spokesperson. When Shigeru Miyamoto comes up to talk at an E3 or Nintendo Direct, usually he doesn't even introduce himself, or if he does, it's very brief. Now, Shigeru Miyamoto, he is one of the most important people in all video game history. If anyone had a reason to brag about themselves, it's Miyamoto. But what does he do? What does he use that time for? He brags about Nintendo, the brand, or the game or system they're doing. He talks about what Nintendo has done in the past and what they're going to do in the future. And then that's pretty much it. He uses his celebrity, I guess, if you will, to put a spotlight on the games and the systems they're working on. At E3 2021, Intellivision Amico had a 10-minute presentation. The majority of the first minute, or the main idea of the first minute, was Tommy Tallarico. It was all about Tommy and the games he's worked on, the big name franchises, how he made the oof sound in Roblox, how he has the Guinness Book of World Records for working on the most games by an individual. And it just seemed like it was all about him. And I think that was a mistake. This has nothing to do with his accomplishments. I keep making that mistake because that guy spawns right there. I will give him credit for all his accomplishments he's done in the video game industry. He has worked on a lot of games. He has worked on, he does do some good music. He has done the Video Game Live tour. He has a lot of credit to his name that I don't want to discredit. But what I'm saying is, a presentation, it's not about you, it's about the system, and it's about the company. And at E3, watching that video, I almost got the idea that we weren't talking about the Intellivision Amico, we were talking about the Tallarico Amico. And we have to switch it back to the Intellivision brand, or they do, okay? They need to switch it, or they should, if they're going to take a lesson from Nintendo. Nintendo has a strong brand because it's not about Iwata, it's not about Miyamoto, it's not about Reggie Fils-Aimé. It's about Nintendo, the brand. and their games. And that's something that they really need to focus on. I wish at E3, Mr. Tellerico would have spent the first minute or even the first 20 seconds, have his name show up on the bottom of the screen. You know, you can even say, hey, I'm Tommy Tellerico, CEO of Intellivision Entertainment. And then say, you know, about 40 years ago, Intellivision entered the video game market, bringing a fresh new experience that players had never seen before, and bringing players together, playing some really enjoyable games. And here we are 40 plus years later, ready to do it all over again with the Intellivision Amico. Make it about the brand, reintroduce the brand. A lot of people don't know the Intellivision brand, not nearly as much as Nintendo or Atari or Sega. So reintroduce the brand and talk about how groundbreaking it was and how groundbreaking it's going to be. You know, even maybe it won't be, maybe the Amico's not that groundbreaking, but at least pump up the brand and use it instead of the personality. And of course, being a spokesman, leave it at that. Do not engage in flame wars. Reggie Fils-Aimé might be my favorite spokesman of recent history from Nintendo. Reggie carried himself in a very positive way, and also a very strong way. He almost came across as your big brother. You felt like, you know, if Sony was going to bully you, he could punch Sony in the face. But he never did, right? He might have said a few things in lighthearted humor jokes, but he was a very friendly and likable guy. He didn't engage in flame wars. He was very careful about the interviews he did. He also limited his time. He didn't talk too much. And he just left it at that. And I think the spokesman for Intellivision Amico, I think Tommy, and he's admitted that, you know, that sometimes he's made mistakes, that he's engaged in flame wars he shouldn't have, and he's going to work on that. So, you know, I'm all about second, third, and fourth chances. So fine, you know, you got another chance. Don't mess up, basically. Don't engage in the flame wars. Don't make it about yourself. Make it about the system. And, you know, some of the fun, you know, the things that he does, like the tours of the office or whatever, you know, I guess that's innocent enough. It doesn't do anything for me. So he can find his own unique voice. But at the same time, you have to be positive all the time. Ignore haters, ignore trolls, you know, answer questions honestly and with integrity. Do those kind of things like they would at Nintendo. And I think you would have a better shot at the Amico being a success. So those are 5 lessons I think Intellivision could learn from Nintendo and the Wii if they want to be the next Wii. I do think they have a lot of work to do if that's what they want to do. They need to get some of those big name games. They need to focus on single players, not just multiplayers with, you know, families with young kids. Otherwise, you might just end up being the Sega Pico, you know, and that wasn't successful. You know, learn from that. A lot of game companies, they did have software games for younger kids and party games for multiple players, but they also had stuff for other players as well. So learn from that. So I think if Intellivision did these things, I think they'd have a stronger chance of success. But like I said, they have a lot of work to do. Those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Go ahead, click like and subscribe. You can support the show on Patreon, and I will see you next time on the next No Swear Gamer video.